Hey everyone, Ray here with Rinksworks. Today's video, I'm going to show you how I took my Gibson Gospel guitar, which is a very nice guitar, from a sad state of neglect and gumminess, and made it respectable and play good again. So I was asked by the school where I work to play a song for the kids, and I agreed to do it. So I pulled this guitar out from under the bed, opened the case, and was embarrassed by what I saw and what I left for myself to deal with. I think we probably all do it from time to time, but in any event, I thought I'd take you along the journey and show you how I cleaned it all up and made it useful again and sound good and look nice. So if you want to see how I did that, then stay tuned and I'll show you. Meanwhile, it's Christmas time. Okay, so here the guitar is actually already all cleaned up and done. When I started the video on how to clean this, I wasn't actually thinking of making a video, so I'd already taken the strings off prior to starting to film and document it. So, real quick, how I remove the strings, which is going to be your first step. I just use a string winder, quickly unwind them, get all the tension off of them, and then I take a pair of good cutters and I cut the strings off. Then you can just unwind and pull them out of the tuners. And then you come back here and you pull your bridge pins. Sometimes you need to, sometimes I'll just take the string and kind of push it down in the slot. That'll relieve the tension that's between the string, the bridge, and the pin. Then you can just pull the pins out. Now, if you get a stubborn one, this slot in the end of the string winder, that's what it's for. It's actually meant to go in there, and you can pop these bridge pins out. I never have had to use one, but anyway, that's what that slot's for. Then you get those out, keep them in order. I keep them in order. That way they go back in the same spot. And also, if you're not comfortable on which way the saddle comes out, because you want to pull this out so you can get everything cleaned up. If you're not comfortable with the direction of the saddle going back in, you can mark it with a Sharpie or something underneath so it'll never be seen. But you can mark it so you know which side it goes to. So anyway, all right, let's get going with the cleaning portion. All right, I'm just going to do a quick video on how I clean a guitar, in this case, an acoustic guitar. I let this thing get pretty gummy, like a lot of us do. And I leave strings on for way too long, and I don't wipe them down when I'm done playing around with them. So sometimes, neglect is your enemy. So a couple of items we're going to use. We use Naphtha, lighter fluid, 4/0 steel wool. I'll use some of this on the fretboard when we're all done. Some good soft rags, and some elbow grease. And then I have a couple scales here I'll just use to set it up when I'm done. I'm not going to go through really any setup procedures or anything because this guitar is set up pretty well. I am going to do a little bit of work, but this video is just going to be about cleaning. So first thing I'm going to do is, see that tag inside there? Now this guitar does have some value to it, so I don't want to hurt that tag. So I'm going to take a rag a big rag and just stuff it in there so that if while I'm cleaning this thing, I don't want anything to splash on that tag. I want to protect it. So, give me a second to set up and I'll be right back. Okay, so I got a nice soft rag here. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to do the whole body and the back of the neck. I'm going to leave the fretboard for the very end. I'm going to do the whole body, neck, uh, headstock, everything. And I'm just putting a little bit on here. And all I'm doing is cleaning that surface. This stuff won't hurt any modern guitars. You get back into 30s and 40s, maybe, I don't know. I would be careful with something vintage just to make sure. Try it on a small area, but this won't hurt delicate nitrocellulose lacquers, or certainly not going to hurt any polyurethanes or any of that sort of stuff. So this, what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to clean the entire front, back, neck, and headstock. All right, now that I got the whole body pretty well wiped down and cleaned up, start working on the fretboard. Now, mine's not horrible, so I think I can be able to clean it up pretty much just with the naphtha. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to work this, and I'm going to use, for example, my thumbnail and kind of get right up next to the frets. Careful not to dig into the wood. And you can see some of the stuff coming off of there. Like I said, this one actually isn't as bad as I thought it was going to be, since I had neglected it for so long. So I'm just going to go ahead and go down through the whole fretboard and get all the gunk out of there. I mean, typically these first 4 or 5 frets is where you're going to find most of the bulk of it, because of course this is where you're playing chords and stuff. So I'll go through now and just clean up the whole fretboard just like that, 1 fret at a time. Now that I got all the gunk off the fretboard, it looks pretty good. You'll see a couple areas here, focus, where there's appears to be some white. And I'm not positive. I think that's like wax or grease is coming up through. I'm not sure. This is a rosewood fretboard, so this is a pretty open grain wood, so it's not smooth as you would feel like maple, or I'm just going to grab a couple fretboards. These are ebony fretboards that I'm making for some other guitars. If actually this other one's a better example just because there's less colorant. This one's a lot darker. But these are a much more closed grain wood. So you don't, it's not as porous, in other words. So with the rosewood, it's a lot more porous. And so we got a little bit of stuff kind of showing through here. Now I'm going to show you how to get rid of that. And I don't have it on every fret, just a few. You can see a little bit of spotting in here and here. So I'll show you what I do to fix that. All right, so let's concentrate here at the 10th fret. You can see a lot. That's probably the worst one. So you can see that white coloring in there. Now all I'm going to do is I'm going to take a soft bristled toothbrush, and when I'm done with this, I'll put it back in my sister's toothbrush holder. But I'm just going to put a little bit of this naphtha on it. Naphtha. And I'm just going to go back and forth with the grain. And it should clear all that wax or whatever it is out of there. At first I kind of thought it was from the rag, the white rag. But then I started using the black rag just to see, and that's not what it was. It wasn't from the white rag. So it doesn't take much, and you don't get aggressive with it. So I'll let that dry up for a second. There's our 10th fret right there. You can see that's all gone now. So you can still see some over here and here. So now all those areas that were like that, I'll hit those the same way. All right, got the fretboard all cleaned up now. So let's move on to the next step. All right, let's talk about something else real quick. That's 4/0 steel wool. 4 zeros. Do not use anything but this. You can use this if your fretboard's really gummed up, which mine surprisingly wasn't nearly as bad as I thought. You can use this and go across your fretboard, and you can really pinch it against the frets. And what you'll be doing is you'll be polishing the side of the frets at the same time you're cleaning the fretboard. Now, it will leave some cross scratches, but once you're done cleaning it, you can go in the direction of the grain and get those scratches out if you need to with 4/0 steel wool. Now, I am going to use this to polish the frets, and I'm going to mask off in between each fret before I do it with some tape that, like painter's tape, that's not very sticky, so that when we pull it off, we don't pull up any lacquer or anything with it. They do make things, I think StuMac has a deal where you can just, it's like a very thin steel plate that you can just set over the fret. There's like a slot in it. You set it on here, hold it, polish your fret, move on to the next one. I don't have one, so I'm going to do it this way. I'm going to tape them and polish. But definitely you can use this to clean. You just got to get those scratches out in the direction of the grain once you're done. All right, I'm going to mask off these frets. All right, now that we've got it all taped off, I'm just going to use the steel wool and polish these frets up. And I'll do a couple, and then I'll bring the camera in and show you the difference between the polished ones and the unpolished ones. Let's see if the camera will pick it up. Get it to focus here. Okay. So we polished the first two, but not the third one there. So you can see, you probably can see a little bit on the camera, but it does make a difference. I do have a few little dings in this fret here. Actually, this one too. But for this particular round of cleaning and that, I'm going to just leave it. I'm just going to polish them up. And then some other time at a later date, maybe I'll do a little bit of fret work on this. But this video is just about cleaning. So now I'm just going to go through and hit them all just like that. All right, everything's polished up, so I'm just going to take the tape off. So we'll go ahead and get all that off, and we'll come back. All right, let's talk a little bit about polishes and stuff like that. So you can get a guitar polish, spray it, and it'll help shine it up a bit. But you can probably see here, as I rotate the camera across this light, you can see some scratches, minor scratches. I am not going to take those scratches out. I could take them out. So when I build guitars and I first do the finish, I sand it and I gradually keep going with finer and finer sandpaper till I get up to like 2000 grit. And then I'll start the process of buffing it all out. And I'll start with like something like this, medium, meaning grittier than the fine, meaning grittier than polish. So I could probably start here and work my way down to that and probably buff out all of these scratches by hand with a good soft rag. But I'm not going to do that because every time you do it, you're taking a little bit of finish off. Each time a little bit more finish off. So I have learned to live with the scratches. Scratches will stay there. They're minor. And unless you get up close, you can't really see them. So what I'm going to do is I use this. I don't have any like guitar polish stuff, specific guitar polish. I just use this. I've had this forever. It lasts forever. I think you can get it just about anywhere, but you can definitely get it at auto body places. I think you can even get it at Walmart. And I'm just going to use a very soft rag. In this case, I'm using this. These are like pajamas or something. It is super soft. If you were to use like a t-shirt type rag, you'll actually introduce more scratches, like even swirl marks or whatever, because even though it feels soft to the touch, it can scratch the clear finish. So I'm going to use this, and I'm going to use that as a polish, and I'm just going to kind of shine it up, basically. I'm not taking any of the deeper scratches out, but it'll shine it up. And it's the same thing with the body of the guitar. I'm not even going to use the polish on the guitar. It's clean, and that's good enough for me. I'm not trying to make it perfect. And honestly, if you took out every scratch out of this guitar, as soon as you play it, as soon as your hand touches it, it's going to leave a mark if you get up close and look at it. So it's not worth doing that because you're just thinning your finish, and over time, more and more and more. These things are meant to be played. If this is going to go in a museum and never be played again, fine. Get all the scratches out, hang it on the wall. Everybody can walk by and look how pretty it is. But that's not what this is. So sort of like a show car, Make a show car look beautiful, but it doesn't go out on the road because as soon as as soon as you drive 40 miles an hour, just the grit from the wind will start scratching your paint. So anyway, we're just going to clean it. That's it. So I'll hit it with that stuff now. Okay, I think I said we're just going to clean it. And we are, but we already cleaned it. Now we're going to just polish it. We're just polishing it. We're not going to remove the scratches. Even this over time will wear your finish. But if you don't do it that often, you're going to be just fine. And it'll just shine it up a bit. But you definitely have to learn to live with some of the imperfections if it's a guitar that you play all the time, or even some of the time, or even once or twice a year, which is kind of the case of this guitar. And this will just kind of shine it up, make it look nicer from a distance. What's the saying in cars? I got a 10-foot paint job, or a 15-foot paint job, or a 40-foot paint job. The closer you get, the worse it looks. And also, I mean, you could do a better job taking the tuners off too, but also that's another thing. I'm not taking them off, because the more you take these on and off, you're also wearing the wood out a little bit at a time each time you take the screws out. You know, the screws on the backside. So no sense in it. Let's clean it up. All right. Now I'll do the same thing. I'll go ahead and do the same thing probably with the whole body. I'll give it just a little wipe down with that just to shine it up a bit. Then we'll come back and work on the fretboard a little more. Actually, it looks pretty nice. So there's still a million little tiny scratches in there, but I gave it kind of a nice little shine. So, all right, I'll finish doing the whole body. All right, now that everything's all cleaned up, we're going to oil up the fingerboard. This is what I use. It lasts a very long time. It's cheap. I'm going to run just a little bit of tape over the areas here just to keep the oil off. I'm also going to throw a rag back in here under that sticker. And this is that tape that is not very sticky. And if you get this on your finish, it doesn't hurt it, but it's just a little messy. And that's why I'm doing this. So what I do is I use it's pretty much the same rag over and over. I keep it in a Ziploc, and it keeps it from getting dusty or dirty. And all you got to do is just basically wipe some on, and then I give it about 5 minutes to kind of soak in. And I think after about 5 minutes, it's soaked in about as much as it's gonna soak in. So, and I get it just to where it's got the surface is a bit wet. So I'm gonna go ahead and go up the whole fretboard here, and then we'll let it sit for 5 minutes, and then I'll be back. I guess I should also mention that once I get the fretboard wet, I do try to kind of rub it in the direction of the grain. So we'll get all that done, and we'll give it about 5 minutes, and then we'll come back and wipe it off. All right, 5 minutes has passed, so I'm just going to wipe it off now. Boy, you can see it gives it a nice, rich look to it. This thing's going to probably play better than it did when it was brand new. And I gotta say, full disclosure, I didn't show it on camera, but I did do some fretwork to this. It seemed kind of silly to not do it while I had everything apart already and my tools out. So these fret edge ends were sharp, and now they're not. And I did a little bit of fretwork to it, and I also reshaped the bridge just a little bit. It was the action was a little bit high, and the saddle had some string grooves in it, so I took those out. And just taking those out probably is going to put my action about where it needs to be, but we'll find that out when I put the strings on. But look at that. All right. Okay, I'm going to wipe that off a little bit more and we'll start putting the strings on. Boy, that fretboard looks nice now, doesn't it? So I'm using these Martin extra lights because my fingers are delicate. And these are kind of oddly packed with the 6th string and the 3rd string in the same package. So let's do the 6th string first, which is your low E string. Let me zoom in the camera a little bit. I'll show you kind of what's going on down here at the bridge end. So your strings are going to go down through, and then your bridge pin is going to go through. You're going to keep the slot facing towards the neck of the guitar. But what you want to make sure of is when you get this seated in here and you pull your string back up, you want to make sure the string is hitting the bottom of the bridge and not getting hung up on your pin or anything. Now, I know some guys will take the string, kind of bend it in a little bit. It's not really necessary, but you can also put your string through, put your pin in, and when and you hold it so that it doesn't pop out on you like that just happened. But you can if you have to, you can feel down in there and you can feel that string, the ball of the string, come up and touch the bottom of the bridge. And that's all there is to that. Now let me zoom you back out onto the headstock here. My tripod broke, so it's a little goofy at the moment. But I'll show you how I do my strings. All right, that's good. So what I do is I take my string and I go 1.5 pegs past the tuner I'm going to be using. So in this case, I'm going to go to right here, and then I line up my pegs so the holes are this way on all of the 6 strings. I went 1.5 here. Now I'm just going to run this through, and I do all 6 strings the same way. Some people do some fancy knots and stuff on their unwound strings. I don't. I have not ever really seen a need for that. So there I've gone through. I kept this mark here, and I'll go 1 spin clockwise over the top, and then I'll bend this up, and then I'll start winding my string to where the wraps go underneath this now. and you're not going to bring this anywhere near to pitch. Now, again, in case of this acoustic guitar, I want to make sure that my peg stays down in the back there. And that's it. And then I just go ahead and cut it off at this point, as close to the peg as I can. Now, since this was packaged in the 3rd string and the 6th string, I actually have a 3rd, so we can do this side now. I'll kind of show you what that looks like. I won't show you this other end because you already saw how I did that. Pull my string up against the bottom of the bridge underneath. So now I'm going to estimate here what is 1.5, right? So here's 1, and then here's about 1/2. So then I'll run this through. Up to that point. I usually flip the guitar over to make it easier on myself, but one wrap over the top, bring that up, and then start winding with the wraps going below. And keep them neat. It helps your guitar stay in tune. Okay. Now we'll cut that one off. All right, I'm going to continue on with the other 4 strings. All right, let's get this guitar tuned up. Now I'm using this tuner that I got. I ordered something and it came with it. I don't know if it's pickups or something, but it works pretty darn good, and I figured for this video it'll actually work pretty nicely. So we'll leave it on the bench. We'll tune it up close. We'll stretch the strings a little bit, tune it up again, stretch the strings, tune it up, and then the final tuning will be in the playing position, because it will change a little bit from being on the bench to being in the play position. So for now, we're just going to go through and get them up close. Each string. Again, we're not trying to make it perfect, we're just getting it close. Whoops. Wrong way, Ray. Okay, they're all kind of close. Now I'm going to give the strings a little bit of stretch. And what I'm doing is I'm actually stretching the string itself, and it's also giving a little bit of tug around these windings here. You're not pulling too hard. Don't pull too hard, especially with an acoustic guitar. You do not want to hurt anything. So just a little bit of, like so. Now tune it up again, because you probably stretched it and the string's probably now got less tension, and so it's probably flat. And as you can see, it did go flat. And again, I'm just going to get it close. The other thing I should mention, this is important. Let's go back just to the E string because it's easier for me to manipulate this. Let's say I accidentally go, or let's just say I go too sharp when I'm tuning it. So now I'm sharp on the E. I'm not going to just bring it back down. This is in your final tuning more so than it is right now on the bench, but let's go sharp again. Okay, so I'm sharp. I'm not going to just go down to the E and stop. I'm actually going to bring it down flat of the E and then bring it back up. And that'll help you stay in tune better. Always go back flat and then come up on the note. and that'll help your guitar stay in tune because you're coming up on it, so you're pulling the string rather than slackening the string, and I think it just helps create a little bit less slop. Back up. Hopefully that makes sense. So now it's pretty well tuned. Now I'll tune it again in the playing position. I'll put my truss rod cover back on after I make some minor adjustments here for something else I'm doing, uh, and then she'll be ready to go. And of course, new strings take a little bit of time to break in, so you have to tune a little more often when you put new strings on. But really, the most important thing is to go flat on the note when you go too sharp, and then come back up right to the note. Then you'll be good to go. So I hope this video helps somebody. Again, this is mostly just a cleaning video. I'll probably do some more later and do some setups and adjustments and stuff like that. But I hope you got something out of this. I hope you are now inspired to go out and get those nasty strings off your gummed up guitar and get it cleaned up and make it nice and happy again. So stay tuned for more stuff, and I appreciate you watching. Thank you, and take care.